On a fresh morning in early November, a Dart Herald comes into land at Llanbedr Airfield in Meirionydd. The passengers landed at Llanbedr that morning had one thing in common. They were all industrialists, over 50 of them, brought here at the invitation of the Development Board for Rural Wales. Now, in late autumn, the last of the summer visitors have left the beaches. It's a dramatic country of magnificent coastlines and rugged hills. It's also a country of opportunity. And that's why the industrialists are here today, to see for themselves what Mid Wales has to offer. Here is an area of outstanding natural beauty in which most people can only spend a few weeks a year. Here also is an area ideally located for business, on the doorstep of industrial South Wales and the Midlands and the North West. The Development Board for Rural Wales is responsible for growth in the greater part of 3 Welsh counties. Throughout this area, it offers modern factories rent-free for a minimum of 2 years and loans at low interest rates for building, for buying plant and equipment, and for use as working capital. It also introduces the businessman to a whole range of other grants to ease the costs of moving into Mid Wales. In some parts of the area, the board offers even more attractive incentives.
We're now running into Blaenau Ffestiniog, and because of its declining slate industry and its basic problem of depopulation, Blaenau Ffestiniog is a special development area. And this means that Blaenau Ffestiniog has an advantage when it comes to grants and loans and so on over the other parts of the Mid Wales area. In terms of the factories, for example, that we show in Blaenau Ffestiniog, a rent-free period of up to 5 years is available, and an extra 2% on the regional development grants offered in other parts of the area.
This is what the industrialists have particularly come to see: factories ready for immediate occupation. The rent of this 50,000 square foot plant would normally be about £127,000 over 5 years, but in Ffestiniog, it's rent-free. There are similar buildings throughout the area. The visitors were taken to see a 7,000 square foot factory at Dolgellau. This is a 10,000 square foot unit at Llandrindod. There are smaller units available from 3,000 down to 500 square feet. And if those don't suit you, the board may even build to your own specifications. There are factories available in over a dozen industrial estates, and they make an impressive display. Most of them are brand new, all ready to occupy and switch on.
The advantage of this one, as opposed to the other, of course, is the full open area. The other one had all the supports in.
Aye. It's just a more recent construction method,
right.
I think.
Yeah.
But it's delightfully laid out.
Everything's ready for occupation.
It is too. It is too. And I like the idea of trying to retain the local labour instead of letting it drift.
Very good idea.
That's why we've chosen Wales, so that it's sort of a central distributory centre.
During the visit, the Development Board introduced its guests to a number of local businessmen who had already successfully accomplished the move into Mid Wales. M. Myers and Son, for example, one of the country's foremost manufacturers of office equipment, established themselves in Newtown in 1969. Their executive manager in Newtown is Arthur Lewis.
We found ourselves, as a company, in a situation where we had to relocate one of our factories. We were interested in a development area because we were interested in renting a factory as opposed to building our own. We looked at a number and found that Mid Wales was convenient to our Midlands head office. We were particularly impressed by the manner in which the deals were conducted with the people in the Development Board at that time. One advantage we found was that the Development Board were prepared to build a factory to our own specification. Obviously, there are advantages in being in a development area. In the first 2 years, the factory was rent-free, and there is assistance in terms of grants, loans, if the company needs them, at favourable interest rates. These we regarded as a bonus on top of the other advantages which we found in this area.
As Mr. Lewis suggests, grants, loans and rent-free premises are not in themselves sufficient inducement to an industrialist to undertake the step of moving to mid-Wales. So what are the other advantages of these communities that make them attractive to businessmen? Mr. Angus Hobbs is Managing Director of GKN Flowform at Welshpool.
Well, we were originally set up in a factory in Newtown, about 14 miles distant, which we shared with a sister company. We had some rather specialised requirements which could only be met by a purpose-built plant, and we got into discussion with Welsh Industrial Estates Corporation, as it then was, and they very quickly built the plant you see here today.
In addition to purpose-built premises, Flowform also needed a particularly high percentage of skilled labour. These are components for the electronics industry produced by a process so specialised that only one other company in Europe is engaged in the same work.
You'll see, having been round the place, that we're possessors of the Queen's Award for export. Our products go to all the industrialised countries in the world, and very largely into the most difficult markets in the world: USA, Germany, France, even some to Japan.
Over 260 people work at Flowform, most of them locally engaged.
This is a cam milling unit, which is placed on an ordinary vertical cam milling machine.
The company encourages visits from local school children, and if they later join, they will offer them a full apprenticeship, partly in the factory and partly in the local technical college.
If you cut that down now, so that the...
Every year, over 3,000 school leavers join the job market in mid-Wales, and a growing number choose to finish their education with a technical course, in the hope of an eventual career in industry. The standards achieved are impressive and improving.
We had found local people, though there was no reserve or pool of skill, could be very quickly trained to do quite skilled jobs, perhaps in a narrow sector, but nevertheless quite skilled jobs very successfully indeed. And we believe that we could not have done better in any of the industrialised locations in the country.
The principal of Montgomery Technical College is Bernard Wakely.
I think there's always been a special quality with the young rural student. I think it's something to do with the rural environment. A lot of that quality was once lost. There was a continuing drain away of the quality into the Midlands. I think young people used to know that they had to go away at 15, 16. The decision had to be made very early in their case. More of that quality is tending to remain behind now.
The companies that are already taking advantage of the growing pool of local labour are many and varied. Some, like Vickers, who manufacture industrial gearboxes in Rhyadr, are big international names. Others, like Laura Ashley, were unknown when they first arrived, but have since developed an international reputation. From their factory in Carno come not only the distinctive Laura Ashley fabrics and wallpaper, but also the dresses that are recognised and admired all over the world. The skills and adaptability of the workforce have been channeled into many crafts totally new to the area. Golf clubs, for example, manufactured in the Petron golf plant at Newtown. Nearby is Sutures Limited, the only British-owned manufacturers of sterilised surgical sutures. To weld a needle onto fine strands of catgut and braided silk needs a good eye and a steady hand. Brecon is typical of the mid-Wales towns. 10 years ago, there was no industry here. Then came the nucleus of a small industrial estate, which today has grown into a complex of 8 factories. The first to arrive was Onziola Limited. For the past 7 years, they've been manufacturing vitreous enamelled kitchenware here in Brecon, providing employment for 53 people. Onziola was also the first foreign company to be attracted into mid-Wales. The parent company is based in Vitoria in Spain, and the senior managers in Brecon are Spanish. Bala, in the north of the area, is another of the towns in which the Development Board for Rural Wales is bringing jobs and industry. Lilliput is an example of one of the smaller factories on the local estate. They assemble model railway engines and carriages and employ 6 people. The Development Board for Rural Wales now owns over 100 factories. Most are already occupied and in production, and the number continues to grow every year. Tootle came in 1969 to make ties and employ 144 people in Newtown. Slimmer, the well-known clothes producers, came to Lampeter and Cardigan in 1967. Doughty also have 2 plants in the area, making, among other things, components for Concorde. To keep pace with the growing workforce, the Development Board for Rural Wales is building houses. Over 800 have been built in the Newtown area alone, and 400 more are under construction. The tide of depopulation, which has swept so relentlessly over the villages of mid-Wales in the past, is rapidly being stemmed and turned. One old wives' tale, or perhaps an old industrialist's tale, that's been well and truly scotched, is the belief that mid-Wales is too far from supply points and markets to make a business viable. You don't make 7-ton, 50-foot-long portable site offices, for example, in inaccessible places. These are produced in mid-Wales by Presco Engineering, a Stoke-on-Trent company, and the tenant of the first ready-built factory in Newtown. The managing director is John Edwards.
The requirement very often is at very short notice, sometimes 24 hours notice, to deliver to places as far as Scotland and the south coast. And in addition to this, we have to deliver for installations in the North Sea, to the oil rigs, to the Orkneys. They go to Holland, Germany, the Middle East and West Africa. In addition, we run our own trucks on the roll-on, roll-off ferries to Belfast and Dublin, and that run is done almost weekly. So you can see it's very important for us to have access to the ports on the west and east coasts of the country. And this presents no difficulty to us from our factories in Newtown. A lot of people seem to me, at any rate, to be under the impression when we say that the factories are in mid-Wales, that that is the back of beyond. Well, of course, it's no such thing. In fact, it's only about 10 miles from the English border, and we can be in Birmingham in the Midlands very rapidly indeed.
In fact, a loaded lorry would comfortably get from Presco's mid-Wales plant to the outskirts of Birmingham in 3 hours and to the outskirts of London in 5. The roads west of the border are good, and for most of the year they carry very light traffic. The M6 runs down the length of the border. The transport question gets more important the further west you go. CB Metcalfe Limited of Blaenau Festiniog are manufacturers of meat and bread slicers, potato peelers and other food machines. They admirably demonstrate how the extra costs of distance can be absorbed by intelligent planning. The managing director is Mr. Harry Richards.
Well, of course, as far as transport is concerned, if you think of that everything that we use has got to come from, well, the nearest place anyway is the Midlands. Steel, castings, say what you like. There is nowhere that we can buy this sort of stuff locally. We set our stall out to go out for quotations, and we always insist that we have a delivered to our factory price. Some firms will do it, some firms won't do it. Well, obviously, the firms who give us the delivered price are the ones who will get the orders. Because if you start messing about with X works, you've no idea what it's going to cost you by the time it gets here to Blaenau. Another problem, of course, is the finished products. They've got a heck of a long way to go. But again, we've got over that by working out with national carriers what they call an agreed flat rate, which is a weight per tonne anywhere in the British Isles. If we sent it to the next station down the line, it would cost us just as much as if we sent it to Aberdeen. So, although our transport costs may be a bit higher than somebody perhaps in the Midlands, we know exactly what they are, so we can incorporate it into the price of our product.
Intelligent planning also lies behind the success of McDermott and Chance printing plant in Welshpool. Their sales office is in Enfield, and most of their customers are from the London area. Their managing director is John Zimbler.
I believe, and I'm sure I can find a number of customers that will give written confirmation, that we can give a better service than many London printers.
McDermott and Chant is in effect a London company based in mid-Wales.
Communications are very important. We do have very regular van runs, 4 nights a week we run vans. We have a direct telephone line to our London sales office in central London. We have data posts to bring up our orders and copy an artwork each night. We have a copy transceiver for the transmitting of copies from London to us and the return of proofs. Having convinced customers that we could give a better service by having their job printed in Wales, we were home and dry.
The benefits of operating from Wales in terms of costs alone are considerable, but there's more to it than that.
And if the customer requires that we work all night to produce his job, the staff are prepared to do that. And that, in my experience, is something that is far more prevalent in mid-Wales than I've ever come across before.
The enthusiastic cooperation of a loyal staff. Today, that's worth a great deal.
We found that the labour force here has been very mature and very stable. In productivity terms, the results have exceeded our expectations by a very considerable margin. And this obviously has been very satisfying from our point of view.
Absenteeism is next door to nil. If a man is absent, then he is genuinely ill. We don't have latecomers or blokes who have days off for this and days off for that. That sort of thing doesn't happen very much.
We've come down to a turnover of people of something in the order of 2 to 3% per year. Well, that means considerable savings to us, of course, in making it unnecessary for us continually to be retraining people to replace people who are leaving.
Above all, Mid-Wales offers you a completely different environment in which to live and work. A better environment, an alternative to the growing problems of urban living, an opportunity to set up shop in one of the most beautiful parts of Britain.
I've heard the phrase, the rat race, used, and people say, well, it must be nice to get out of the rat race. Well, of course, in business terms, you don't get out of the rat race in that sense. Business is still business here. But where the advantage stems here is in the opportunities which are available to you after business. If you live in the Midlands, you come to an area like this for your holiday. I enjoy these facilities here. The coast is within an hour all the year round.
And it's not only the peace of the countryside and the glow of outdoor pursuits that Mid-Wales offers. As befits a country that has long prided itself on its love of education and learning, there's a lively cultural and social life here. Take Aberystwyth, for example. Population, 11,000 people. It has an arts centre, which houses a theatre, a concert hall, an art gallery, and many other amenities. On the hill above the town is the National Library of Wales, one of the 5 copyright libraries in Britain. Beneath it is the University College of Wales, Aberystwyth, one of the 2 university colleges in the area. The schools of Aberystwyth, as in the rest of the area, are modern and well-equipped. It's worth noting that more than twice as many secondary school children from Mid-Wales go on to further education than in the rest of the country. Aberystwyth is the southern terminus of the Cambrian Coast Railway. The line stretches up to Pwllheli in the north and connects at Shrewsbury with the intercity network. There's a modern hospital in the town, and as you might expect in an area where tourism flourishes, the hotels and shopping facilities in Mid-Wales are considerably better than the local demand alone could sustain. For every year, the tourists spend some £60 million in Mid-Wales. Much of that sum would be spent on craft products made locally. Craft Centre Cymru is owned by David Lewis.
The market that I'll be buying for, that is 15 shops, I'll be spending about £500,000 in Wales this year. The main product groups are basically wool, which is the biggest one, in both knitting and weaving, leather, wax in the form of candles, iron and wood. But I would say the biggest opening for someone starting in Wales would be wool.
Many of these crafts have been practiced in Wales for hundreds of years. There have been woolen mills in Dinas Mawddwy for as long as anyone can remember. And a company like Abati Potteries soon found local people with the skills of firing kilns and turning wheels. Small businesses are flourishing. Idwell Jones, harp maker of Welshpool, has no trouble selling his lovingly made products. For all crafts, the tourist boom has meant a new lease of life and a new opportunity.
The export is coming on quite well, and about a third of our production is now going for export, whereas 4 or 5 years ago there was nothing.
Old crafts revived, new crafts developed. The people of Mid Wales are nothing if not adaptable. There are other, less obvious benefits of moving into a rural community. In these Mid Wales towns, you won't be just one more factory. You could well be the only factory. The community will depend on you just as much as you depend on them.
The help of being an important fish in a small pool is terrific, because when you are asking for labour or for help in housing or anything like that, you get instant cooperation, instant help.
The local MP on his parish rounds calls at Brockhouse Engineering, Aberystwyth, one of only 8 factories in the town. For the people of Aberystwyth, and therefore for the officials and representatives of the town, Brockhouse is important.
Good morning, Mr. Howell. Good morning. How are you? All the work we're doing is precision engineering. The tolerances are a thou and less. So it is highly skilled engineering that the men are doing.
Have you any plans to expand in Aberystwyth here?
Yes, well, we're undergoing an expansion at the moment. We've just had an extension built and we're in the process now of putting plant in that extension. So initially we hope to double our current workforce over the next 2 or 3 years.
And what should I do in the future to try and help you in any way?
Well, one way really is just to advertise the fact that Brockhouse are here, an engineering company in Mid Wales. If we could get other similar companies here, it would help the service situation supplying us.
And that basically has been the purpose of this flying visit. We want new industries in Mid Wales, and we'll make sure that moving into our area will be easier than you think and unexpectedly rewarding. That certainly was the experience of Brian Cook when he uprooted his manufacturing plant from the Midlands and replanted it in the middle of Llandrindod Wells.
We had got ourselves an expanding file order from New Zealand, which we couldn't manage from our Birmingham factory. We had to find somewhere else to make the things, and we looked round for a small sub-factory. That's all it was when we began. It went so well that we had to expand here at the expense of Birmingham. Once you go up in Wales and down in Birmingham, the eventual result is inevitable. You've got to move the whole lot. We did that. It was an upheaval. Only a few of our people came, about 7 I think came with us, and all the other were locally engaged, locally trained. Moving a factory at all clears your mind wonderfully about what you're in business for. And when we moved out of Birmingham, we left behind an awful lot of our old machines and old ideas. Also, when you move factory, you cut out an awful lot of the old wood, the jobs you didn't really want to do and weren't really profitable. The people who should have been retired or should have retired themselves years ago, but hung on because it was all right, there was a nice little job, and they slowed down the whole thing. You come to a new area, you've got to make it go, you've got to get thoroughly involved with it, you've got to get generated. And wandering around our factory, I think you'll see how it really is moving fairly fast. We expanded. The grants we got helped our expansion. It went very much more quickly than could ever have gone in Birmingham. And so we've got a factory here now of some 46,000 square feet. It's fully occupied, it's going flat out. Another one at the other of 32,000 square feet. And we have an extension being built on this factory here, which should be ready sometime next year.
You can't see much of Mid Wales in a day, perhaps, but we can give you some idea of its possibilities. One group of our visitors were already making plans for moving in on the way back to the airfield.
We want to move in when? How many months?
July, isn't it?
July. So we're talking about 8 months' time.
7, 8 months.
Whereas at the moment they're saying something in the region of 12 to 14 months.
Yeah.
all right, we may be able to wait that long, or on the other hand, they may be able to speed it up if we, you know, pressure them to.
If it has to be done in 8 months, then 8 months it shall be. You tell us what your needs are, and we'll show you that Mid Wales can cope. Come and see for yourself.